For 3 winters, Melissa Carter slept in the back seat of a rusted sedan parked behind a gas station outside Denver. Every night, she wrapped her 8-year-old daughter in old blankets and told the same lie. Tomorrow will be better. But tomorrow never came. At least not until a letter arrived with no return address. Inside was a single key, and news that changed everything. Melissa's grandmother, Eleanor Whitmore, had died alone in a remote mountain town, nearly 2,000 miles away. The same grandmother the family barely spoke about. The same woman everyone described as poor, bitter, and forgotten. And somehow, she had left Melissa her house. At first, it sounded impossible. A homeless mother inheriting property in the Colorado mountains felt less like reality and more like the beginning of a scam. Melissa almost threw the letter away, but desperation has a way of forcing people to chase even the smallest spark of hope. So with barely enough gas money and everything they owned packed into trash bags, Melissa and her daughter drove west through endless highways, frozen forests, and snow-covered cliffs toward a town called Black Hollow. Population 312. The farther they traveled, the stranger things became. Locals at roadside diners recognized Eleanor's name immediately. Some reacted with silence. Others warned Melissa to turn around. One old man stared at her for several seconds before quietly asking, "You're staying in that house?" "That house. Not your grandmother's house. That house." By the time they reached Black Hollow, the sun had disappeared behind the mountains. Thick fog rolled through the valley like smoke, swallowing the narrow roads and abandoned buildings. It looked less like a town and more like a place the world had forgotten on purpose. And at the very edge of the mountain ridge stood Eleanor Whitmore's home, or what was left of it. The structure leaned dangerously against the cliffside, surrounded by dead pine trees and rusted fencing. Broken windows rattled in the freezing wind. Parts of the roof had collapsed years earlier. This was the inheritance. Melissa sat in the car in complete silence. She had imagined warmth, safety, a second chance. Instead, she found a decaying shell hanging over a mountain. But with nowhere else to go, they stepped inside, and that's when everything changed. The house was freezing cold, coated in dust thick enough to hide footprints. Yet strangely, some things looked untouched. A kettle rested neatly on the stove. Books were stacked perfectly beside the fireplace. And on the dining table sat a single photograph of Eleanor holding Melissa as a baby, as if she had been waiting. That first night, the power failed completely. The mountain vanished into darkness. Then came the sound. 3 knocks. Slow, heavy, from somewhere deep inside the house. Melissa froze. The doors were locked. No footprints surrounded the cabin. And according to the nearest neighbor, nobody had visited that property in years. Still, every night at exactly 2:14 a.m., the knocking returned. Soon Melissa began searching through the house for answers. Hidden beneath loose floorboards in Eleanor's bedroom, she discovered dozens of letters, tax records, and faded newspaper clippings. And buried among them was a secret no one in Black Hollow expected her to uncover. Eleanor Whitmore was never poor. In fact, decades earlier, her family owned thousands of acres of valuable mountain land, before a mine company quietly forced residents out through legal loopholes and intimidation. Most families sold everything for almost nothing. But Eleanor refused. For over 40 years, she fought the company in court completely alone, and she won. Unknown to almost everyone in town, Eleanor had secured ownership rights to land now worth millions of dollars due to rare mineral deposits discovered beneath the mountains. But there was one condition: the rights transferred only to a direct heir willing to physically live on the property. That heir was Melissa. Suddenly, the abandoned house wasn't worthless anymore. It was the center of a fortune, and people in Black Hollow knew it. Within days, strangers began appearing near the property at night. Trucks parked along the road with engines idling in the dark. Anonymous offers arrived in the mailbox demanding Melissa sell immediately. Then came the threats. Because the mountain carried more than buried minerals. It carried decades of greed, corruption, and secrets powerful people thought had died with Eleanor Whitmore. But for the first time in years, Melissa refused to run. The homeless mother who once slept behind a gas station now stood alone against developers, lawyers, and wealthy investors determined to take everything from her. And somehow, the broken mountain house gave her something she had lost long ago: a reason to fight. Today, parts of Black Hollow have changed forever. Investigations into historic land fraud reopened, former residents returned seeking justice, and Melissa Carter, once invisible to the world, became the legal owner of one of the most valuable properties in the region. But the strangest part of the story isn't the money. It's this. A woman everyone dismissed as poor and forgotten spent her entire life protecting a future she knew she would never see, for a granddaughter who had nowhere left to go. And in the end, the mountain house didn't just save Melissa's life. It proved that sometimes the people the world abandons are the very ones holding its greatest secrets.